Okay, it's going to be my reaction to the fight yesterday between Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez. Shakur Stevenson won basically every single round. Complete shutout. Teofimo Lopez literally had no answer to anything that Shakur Stevenson was doing. The result didn't surprise me at all. Like I said before the fight, Shakur Stevenson is a master of distance. And that's exactly what he did. He just kept distance the whole fight. He beat him to death with the jab. He just beat him to death with the jab. Teofimo Lopez had no answer. By the third round, Teofimo Lopez, he didn't know what to do. He literally didn't know what to do. The lead hand from Lopez was having no effect. He couldn't touch him. Lopez literally couldn't touch him the whole fight. He was just lunging in with punches. I definitely think that Shakur Stevenson was extremely sharp, especially because this was like a coming out fight for him, the fact that Lopez is a big name. And he definitely did the job. I think that he definitely could have stopped Teofimo Lopez because, he really had no answer. He was getting hit at will by jabs and straight punches, and he literally couldn't touch Shakur Stevenson. His right hook to the body was pretty much the only punch that was landing, and the overhand right punches were just, you can't hit Shakur Stevenson with those kind of shots. He got dominated. He got extremely dominated. I think Shakur Stevenson, this was a tremendous fight for him to establish himself with one of the best names in the world in Teofimo Lopez. And even though it was a complete mismatch, I think that Shakur Stevenson now has a recognition. I definitely think that he's top 5 pound for pound. And with Terence Crawford being retired, my pound for pound at the minute, well, Usyk would be number 1, Inoue number 2, maybe Dimitri Bivol number 3, maybe Shakur Stevenson 4, and Bam Rodriguez 5 maybe. But I definitely think that he deserves to be in the top 5 because it's 4 divisions now, undefeated, and he's got a big star on his record in Teofimo Lopez. Now, Teofimo Lopez, I really don't think that he could have done anything different. A lot of people are saying that his corner was the issue for his fight, but I just think that, in hindsight, he hasn't got the footwork, and he really didn't look too much different to all of his previous fights. With Lomachenko, he's a lot bigger than Lomachenko, and Shakur Stevenson's, I think, even though he came from a lower weight class, I think he's probably physically bigger and stronger than Teofimo Lopez. And in the Lomachenko fight, you could tell his power had an effect. At lightweight, Teofimo was a big puncher, but I think at 140 pounds, he's definitely not a big puncher. I don't think he's got a knockout at 140. And I think he said he's going to move up to 147, but I don't see him winning too many fights. I think that mentally, this fight, and it was a complete shutout, I think it would have probably hurt him a lot. So I don't know what Teofimo Lopez is going to do coming back. Shakur Stevenson, I think he looked so dominant that, a lot of fighters, they're probably not going to want to fight him. Because Shakur Stevenson, he definitely doesn't have that killer instinct. He's definitely not like a Crawford or even like a Keyshawn Davis, who I truly believe is going to be the best fighter in the world at some stage. But yeah, Shakur Stevenson, I don't think it's going to be too easy getting a fight because, a lot of fighters aren't going to want to fight him. After the fight, him and Conor Ben were talking about, going back and forth about having a fight. I definitely think if that fight gets made, it's going to be a lot harder than Teofimo Lopez. Not only is Conor Ben bigger, but he actually comes with the pressure and throws punches in bunches. But I definitely don't think he would beat Shakur Stevenson. Shakur Stevenson is just too sharp. He controls distance too well. I really only see there being 2 fighters from 147 down. Given that Jaron Ennis, I think Jaron Ennis could have had a good chance of beating him, but he moved up to 154. But 147 pounds down, I think there's only 2 fighters, maybe 3 that can beat him. And that's every fighter that I can think of from 147 pounds down currently. I think I can only think of 2 fighters that would have a chance, maybe 3 that would have a chance of beating him. Because right now, Shakur Stevenson, he's just extremely sharp, extremely hard to hit, and in order to beat him, you have to be able to punch. You have to be able to hurt him to get him out of his game plan, and you must have great footwork to be able to hurt him. So Teofimo Lopez didn't have the footwork, and he was just lunging in with shots, so clearly his timing and his movement wasn't there. Not like the elite guys in the sport, but I would say the 2 fighters who I say have a chance of beating him. Number 1, I would say Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis, he's a master distance too. And he has tremendous timing. He's a lot better boxer, a lot better fighter than Teofimo Lopez. And he definitely has that power at 140. Teofimo Lopez, I don't believe, has the power at 140. I think he had some good knockouts at lightweight, but I think at 140, Gervonta Davis has the power, and he definitely has the boxing skill to trade, and I believe to land against Shakur Stevenson. So I definitely think that he's a fighter. He's one of the 2 fighters that can beat Shakur Stevenson. And if they were to fight, because I like the style of Gervonta Davis a lot more, I definitely would be betting on him. Shakur Stevenson, great fighter, great skills, second to none really in the sport, but he doesn't have that killer instinct. And I think that to be an all-time great, you have to have it, even a little bit. All the great boxers in history had it. Usyk is a great boxer. He has the killer instinct. Muhammad Ali, great boxer, has it. Sugar Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Leonard, even Floyd Mayweather. If you look at Floyd Mayweather against Arturo Gotti, Philip Endo, if you look at, even some of his later fights, he's the type of guy that he can hurt you. And Shakur Stevenson has all the skills in the world, but I definitely would like to see him press the attack. He definitely could have got Teofimo Lopez out of there. And, we'll see what the future holds for him. But as far as beating him, it's going to be a tough task. Like I said, Gervonta Davis is one fighter who I think can beat him. And Keyshawn Davis, another fighter. So he fought on the undercard. I think Keyshawn Davis is going to be one of the best fighters in the world. I definitely see his style being very, very similar to Crawford. I think he's got a very similar style to Crawford. I think that he's going to be a great fighter. I think he's going to be pound for pound number 1. I think he's definitely one of my favorite fighters in the sport. And he's still early in his career. He's been a world champion. And I think that him and Shakur Stevenson are very close. I think they're friends. But I definitely think that they very well could be the last 2 standing. And eventually they might have to fight. If they're pound for pound number 1 and number 2, they're going to have to fight. But I definitely think that Keyshawn Davis, he has the potential to beat him because he can box, very good fighter, he can punch, and he has that killer mindset, same way Crawford did. Now the third fighter that I'm probably a bit less confident putting money on him to beat Shakur Stevenson than the other 2 is Devin Haney. Now Devin Haney, he is a good boxer, and Shakur Stevenson really hasn't got the power, I believe, to hurt Haney with one shot. And that's Haney's kryptonite, in my opinion. You have to hurt him the same way Ryan Garcia hurt him, throw punches in bunches. And I think that Shakur Stevenson, how he beats Haney is how he beats everyone to outbox him. So that would be an interesting fight. It wouldn't really be, I don't think, the fight that's going to be a fight of the century. I think it's going to be a chess match. But if you like boxing, I think it'll be very interesting. And I think Haney has a slight chance of beating him. But everybody else in the sport, Shakur Stevenson, I think is too good. I think he works his distance too well. Too much of a ring general, and I really don't see anybody else in the sport beating him, apart from those 2-3 fighters. Another fight that was, interesting, I actually had money on the opponent, was Jarrell Miller. Now, obviously, everyone saw what happened with his toupee coming off, and really that's probably a bit of karmic justice because this guy, he puts it on everyone. This guy's just a loudmouth. He puts it on everyone. So I think that happening to him was maybe a bit of karma. But he's definitely an exciting fighter. It'd be good to see him with some heavy hitters. I did have money on his opponent because when I saw Jarrell Miller came in at 317 pounds, I knew that anybody that comes in at that weight will be completely sloppy and, just not very good. And he wasn't good in this fight. But neither was his opponent. I had money on the opponent, Kingsley, I think. That's his name was. But I believe that Kingsley won the fight. It wasn't by much. It was a very close fight. I had money on Kingsley, but I think that the fact that Jarrell Miller got his hair knocked off, the judges probably gave to him because of that. But yeah, great card, great night of boxing, and that's my reaction.